God.
It's just a reboot, reset. It's the beginning of February.
It is.
Just start over.
Well, yeah. And so so our theme, we're carrying our theme on from January, because we started halfway through January. So we're like, this is a cool theme. Let's keep this for 6 weeks or whatever. And so we're talking about defining success for ourselves. And the interesting thing, sorry, my phone just beeped. So I'm like, okay, that's okay. Do not disturb me. So I feel like there's stuff to talk about here. Like, part of defining success for yourself, maybe we need to have another theme about overcoming challenges or something like that. But I think it's not realistic that we're always going to feel successful.
No.
So part of defining success for ourselves should be, how can we use that to get out of a slump, or to get back into feeling successful, or there's got to be something here, right?
Or setting up a system for yourself so that you can rebound from these kinds of things and not let it completely jumble you and throw you into chaos, which admittedly is where I tend to go for a brief period of time when the crap hits the fan like this.
And okay, so what, as an emotional educator, one of my first things would be, let yourself be where you are for at least a while, right? And you and I have talked before, but maybe people listening. So there's an interesting balance between letting yourself feel bad when you feel bad and not trying to logic yourself out of it, but then not ruminating and not letting your thoughts keep you in a dark place.
Right. Or pull you into a downward spiral. Yes, exactly.
Because there's definitely findings from my background, cognitive psychology, about memory. We call it state-dependent memory. So if you're feeling bad, the memories that you can access more easily are the memories that are related to feeling bad. Just like when you're happy, you tend to have more, it's easier to remember things that are consistent with feeling happy. So they're not unrelated, but, don't just try to get out of it right away. Sometimes we deserve a funk.
Yes.
But find your own balance between respecting that and also respecting your ability to bounce back and to get out of the swamp.
Out of the swamp. That's it exactly.
Yes.
So for me, I am very much that person. When stuff like this happens, it is momentarily, as you say, it is literally emotionally traumatizing for me.
Yeah.
Because it feels like a personal attack. I'm thrown into chaos. I panic. And I go into this fear mode, and then it's like you said, I need to take that time to sit with that, which helps me process what has actually happened, and then go, okay, yeah, this sucks, but I have a savings account, but I have the ability to get a loan, but whatever the tick points are for the given situation. And it's not financial in every situation. Believe me, I've had other, what storms that were not financial.
Well, a lot of mine are about my son, right?
Yeah.
Which some are financial to afford therapy and whatever and camp and blah, blah, blah. But a lot of it is just how to support him with his special needs, non-financially. Right. So, I get it.
And to me, part of being successful, whether it's in your personal life or your professional life or both, is having the ability, like I said, to pull yourself out of these things and know that you do have access to the resources that will help get you out of the situation. So setting yourself up in a way where you do have things that you can fall back on once you get out of the funk of, oh my God, my whole world is falling apart. Why is this happening to me? being able to then take that deep breath, look at the big picture of the entire you-know-what situation and go, yeah, this sucks, but I can buffer this edge this way, or I can round this sharp corner this way and slowly shift the direction of the crappy situation. Otherwise, you just get stuck in it. And you do.
Yeah.
You have to take that. You do deserve that day. And I had that day yesterday where you just eat the comfort food and throw the pity party. And
I saw, was it you who put the macaroni on that you were eating?
That was me.
Comfort food, your macaroni. I thought that was you. I remember seeing that yesterday.
Totally processed, butter-filled, totally bad for me. Yep, it was macaroni and cheeses. And a matter of fact, I just ate the leftovers.
There you go.
So, yeah, you have to surround yourself with those things that once you internalize the bad, you can then start to look for the possibilities of there being good to turn the situation around. Because every you-know-what situation can be turned around. There is always the other side, you know.
Yeah. Well, it's an interesting thing. Yeah, it's an interesting thing because one of the things I like people to think of when they're trying to define, when they're going through the process of trying to figure out what success is for them and not just what everyone tells them they should want to do. Exactly. One of the key things I tell people, make sure your definition of success is based on something that's up to you.
Yes.
Not up to someone else. So pardon me. The context.
Control.
Yeah, well, the context of this is what makes a successful mother is what it often comes up to, or what makes you successful in business. A lot of people in business are like, I have to get X clients. It's like, well, that's not up to you, because it's a relationship. So there's something up to the other person. But it's like, so instead of saying I got 5 new clients, why don't you say, well, I'm supposed to make 20 sales calls a day. And if it's up to you that you make the call, you can't 100% control the outcome, right? So the same thing with being a successful mother. Often I hear women saying all sorts of criteria that are based on what their children are doing.
Yes.
And not them. So instead of saying, I know I'm a successful mother when I don't lose my temper with my kids.
Which is a good one.
It's, I know I'm a successful mother when my child doesn't throw a temper tantrum, or, that's not a specific example, but I know that one woman I interviewed had a really good definition. She was just like, that my child is acting as independently as they can, appropriate for their age. And obviously as a parent, we have something to do with how independent our kids are, but that's still their decision.
You know what? And independence is one of my big things. And that is very true. Kids, independence and your ability or your choice to be independent is very individual. It is very, I'm going to use a weird word here, but it's very ingrown, where it comes from the child. As a parent, you can set up all the stones, the building blocks for them to be independent. But if they don't want to be independent, if they don't see themselves as having an ability to be independent, they're not going to be, because they're going to feel like they're missing some sort of a tool that allows them to be independent.
Well, and it's a huge personality difference in kids. Like some 2-year-olds are screaming, myself, like that they want to do everything themselves. Yeah. And then some older kids even are like, no, do everything for me.
Yeah, exactly. And it's two totally different mindsets. And I even believe to a great degree, it's 2 different avenues of self-image as well.
Yeah, probably.
Kids don't see themselves as having an ability to be independent or self-sufficient. then they're not going to try to, bear that out.
Yeah. And I'm not trying to say that environment is totally irrelevant, but still.
No, of course not. It's just,
yeah.
I believe to a certain degree that we're able to buck our environment, so to speak, though. We can see that our environment is not positive or is not sustainable and make choices to kind of build a separation so that we can make a different set of choices.
Mm-hmm.
But that is dependent on all kinds of different factors.
So where should we go with this conversation? What?
I think it's an interesting conversation to have, just because it's almost an impossible conversation to have, because there are so many different factors and there are so many different points of view.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's very much based on each individual person's experience. But I think building blocks is probably a good place to go.
For success?
For success, yeah.
Okay.
What are the things that you absolutely have to have to achieve any kind of success, whether it's, as a mom or as a business person or just as a living, breathing human being? You were talking about how people define success and how a mother might see success one way or a business owner might see success a different way. It seems to me like there has to be some common blocks, some common denominators.
Well, I just joined yet another Seth Godin workshop yesterday.
Oh boy.
For creators, for creators who want to become professional creators.
Oh, cool.
So, and it reminded me of a quote, because he mentions this a lot, and I put it up in my group.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, success is doing work that matters for people who care.
Yes.
And I think that extends beyond, I think that extends into parenting. I think that extends into life in general, not just work, like not just quote unquote work, right? I think that, but it's an interesting thing to start to dissect, because we can't, obviously, as business people, we can't create a business in a vacuum. We need to connect with customers and clients, people who are going to care enough to pay us.
Right.
So there's community and finding those people, which means there's some external forces, which, to what extent, if you're looking for actions that are due to you, and I mean, as an emotional educator who focuses on the importance of relationships, we can't be emotionally healthy or feel successful totally alone.
No, because then you end up feeling alone,
mm-hmm.
and incapable or unable to make those connections that you need to. Yeah, you can't.
Parenting is a relationship with other people. And business, if you don't have anyone paying you, you are not in business.
Right.
So it involves other people. But then I also am. So what makes work matter? So if success is doing work that matters for people that care, what makes something matter? That, I think, is, again, it has to be consistent with our values and our goals. And there's something about us, because we've talked about talents and skills and wanting it to be something that fulfills us as individual people. Yep. But then we also need that connection with others, because I wonder if we can feel, how can we feel our work matters if nobody cares?
Right. Exactly. I just totally couldn't spell. I was going to write a note and then the word went out of my brain. But yeah, no, you're right. You need that feedback from quote unquote outsiders to know that you're on the right track.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Well, I think well, when you say outsiders too, I think it's interesting because I think there's a lot of emphasis now on community and on creating a community for your customers, clients, whatever, right? And so that it's not really feeling like outsiders anymore.
right. And you're right, exactly. And so outsiders was a bad word. What I was
Not
thinking
you, outside you.
outside you, yeah. And in bridging that gap of quote unquote feeling alone and or being isolated. You need to bring the outsiders in so that you're not feeling isolated or cut off
Yeah.
or completely alone. And that creates success because you build those relationships which open up other connections and so on and so on, and it's kind of like a ripple.
Yeah. And I think your community or your soul family are also the relationships that can help you get out of a funk.
Oh gosh, yes. Yeah.
Yay.
Yeah. It's essential. And you have to be careful with that too, because I mean, you don't want to go to those people or that person and be like, and diarrhea of the mouth. And that's not healthy either. That's not healthy for you, and that's not healthy for the other person or the other people. But you do need that. You need that sounding board. Again, you can't be successful alone. You need that sounding board to express yourself to and to get that feedback of, okay, well, does this make sense, or does this just sound like something good in my head? Is this something that people connect to, or do I need to adjust?
Well, and I would just say, I can see where you're coming from with not like the verbal diarrhea of unpleasantness, but at the same time, I think it depends on your relationship. I think it depends on the individual relationship, because some people have relationships where that's totally okay, and they both people share that. Right. I think it can be unhealthy, but I think it can also be very healthy. It just depends. And I've talked about vulnerability and how vulnerability is kind of a dance. And if one person is way more vulnerable than the other person, that can start to feel really awkward.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it can get unhealthy really fast.
Right.
But I mean, you and I have both shared with each other a lot of really serious stuff. So
yeah, absolutely.
So I don't feel. So I feel like if you're having a bad day, so we're not going to talk about it in this public-ish forum, but we could talk about it privately. And I don't think that, it would be totally appropriate for our relationship. You just have to worry about people who you don't have as deep a relationship with. And it just takes time, right?
Exactly. Well,
and trust, but it does take time.
What I think was coming to me when I said that too was, you want to make sure that the basis for that relationship is not solely dependent on every time you reach out, it's negative. You have to, okay, I need to get this off my chest, but also here's something good,
Well, it's about give and take, right? So, and it doesn't have to be give and take in each interaction. There's some days you need help, some days I need help, right?
Yeah.
And it's something that I've been thinking about in several contexts lately, but I don't think I've ever actually had a chance to say it, which is kind of funny for me because I'm chatty. But it's come up a bunch of times about how it's seen as an imposition or something like that, a negative, to share your painful emotions with other people.
Yes.
And I just had this thought because it connects with what I talk about a lot about Brené Brown saying that our most fundamental need is love and belonging, right? Yeah. And I think that's why the quality of pain, the quality of the emotional pain changes when we're sharing it with someone else.
Yes.
Because being in emotional pain is painful by definition, but when we're dealing with it alone without a sense of love and belonging, we're also dealing with isolation and not feeling understood. We're dealing with a lot of other pain heaped on the original pain, right? Whereas it is totally possible to be in emotional pain and to have empathy and accept your friend or whatever, to accept someone else's emotional pain. But doing that in a context of love and belonging is actually a connecting thing. And I think even though it's emotionally painful, but in a way it's reinforcing a very positive feeling.
Right. Because it when you can do that, you're through your own painful situation, you're being of service.
And you're connecting.
Right.
And you're feeling understood. And I think there's lots of different layers to it, but it just, just saying it comes down to love and belonging, and you can have your pain and love and belonging, or you can have pain without love and belonging. And that's a lot worse.
Right. Well, and I think when you can have that feeling of, yes, I am suffering myself, but this person is also suffering, and I'm doing something good by listening and supporting and helping, then that gives you a sense of purpose to find that light of positivity to be able to kind of work through your own stuff too. I find that a lot, where I'm having a crappy day or I'm dealing with something that I don't necessarily need to put out there in La La Land, but it's something that is a struggle for me. But then I hear someone like yourself, for instance, who's having a parenting struggle, and we talk that through, and it's just like, oh, well, this feels better. I guess my day wasn't so bad. Like, I'll be okay. And so there's that sense of listening to somebody else and being able to be that buffer for somebody else, that you can then take that little piece of, I did something positive without that being the intent of it, and sprinkle it maybe on your own internal junk.
Well, I mean, it's an identity thing, right? Like, are you focused on the piece of your identity that's somebody in trouble or somebody needing help, or are you focusing on the part of your identity that can offer help and that's capable and that is doing your meaningful work for someone who cares? Like it just, and it is one of the interesting things. We do have very limited capacity for things that we can process at one time, right? I think that's one of the things behind, I think, why people say, you can't be afraid and grateful at the same time.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of neurobiology behind that, which I'm not 100% up on, but it's also, we've talked about the looking for red cars versus looking for blue cars when you drive, right? It's really interesting that when you're looking for something, you find it. And if you're not paying attention to something, it goes in your perceptual system and out, and you don't even register it, right?
Well, and I think there's another slice of that too, which is kind of what I just experienced, where you're not looking for things and maybe not noticing things, and I don't know if that's a thing, and then something huge happens that you didn't see coming, and I don't know if that's some sense of unawareness, or if there is some psychological, a lot of times something big will happen that maybe we should have seen coming, or we don't pay attention to the small warning signs that would make that big thing less startling or less sideswiping.
Well, it's also, you're perfectly describing a grieving experience.
Is that what that is?
Well, a grieving experience is about any change, right? And loss of the familiar is a change, and loss of the, if you expect this and then get this, that's a change. Even a change in your expectations, or that reality is not meeting your expectations, that's a loss.
That's interesting.
So we're not taught how to deal with loss. Like,
No.
I think a really interesting quote from the Grief Recovery Handbook is, I'm not going to get it exactly right, but paraphrasing, it's like, we are taught our whole lives how to acquire things, but never taught how to deal with losing them.
That is so true. Yeah.
So, and one of the most fundamental things we learn, which is what I tell people all the time and what I said earlier on in this conversation, sometimes we need to sit with our feelings and just have that time and just not try to get ourselves out of it right away. And you have experienced that. You need to, and I still use the word process as well. I haven't found a better word yet. That sounds very intellectual, and that's not. Just feeling your feelings, right?
Right. I do think it is processing. It's working, ironing it out, and that is, like you said, that is definitely what I needed to do. Like, I needed to, as they say, feel the feels before I could
and
feel the situation.
Yeah, and our feelings, I keep saying our feelings are a valuable source of information, but they can't tell us if we don't listen. So processing in some sense is feeling our feelings and listening to what they're telling us, right? Because it's often very challenging, especially for people like you and I who do a lot of thinking.
Yes.
To stop for a while and just, what are we being told? It's interesting. So bringing this back to our success conversation, I have a friend, Rachel Dupre, who's a business coach.
Okay.
And she posted something recently on her own feed about, in a sense, success, because she tries to help people find a career or a job or side gig or whatever that will help them feel successful. And she was talking about that being an emotional experience. Finding that is about feeling a certain way about your work. And while you do your work and all of that.
Yeah.
And it's important.
Yep. And a lot of people, be an interesting place to take this conversation. A lot of people fall into that slump. I just talked about that on a different conversation you and I were on this morning. About falling into that slump where, because of the situation that I referenced at the start of this conversation, it sideswiped me.
Yeah.
And it got me into this slump or sense of stuck that, prevented me from doing all of the things that I knew would make me productive, which ultimately would have helped me avoid getting stuck to begin with. And so what do you do with that?
One of the things that what you just said is bringing to mind for me is just part of the entrepreneurial journey, is that we rely on ourselves.
Oh, yeah.
And so a lot of our vulnerability, it's awesome when it goes well. When things go well, it's great being your own boss.
Yeah.
When things don't go well, you've got no one up the ladder to blame or to ask for help.
Exactly.
You can't rely on a salary. Like, it's a challenge of the entrepreneurial life that we don't have the security.
Right. Yeah.
We can't just sit and put in our 9 to 5 and get paid.
No, you're right. You can't just show up to a job, do what they ask you to do, and expect to get a paycheck at the end.
Phoning it in does not.
Nope.
Right?
Nope.
So, and I think that's an interesting, and I'll get back to I will probably get you to ask your question again, because I don't think I'm addressing something that it brought to mind. I don't think I'm actually addressing your question, but I think that that's an important thing to think about with success, because there's a lot of people that the entrepreneurial life would be their nightmare.
Yes.
Right? So it's not just what you do, it's the container in which you do it. Like, are you working for someone else? Are you an entrepreneur? Are you somebody who does both because you have a side gig? And, like, there's lots of different options. And I think that's an important thing that, like, we don't teach kids that.
No. And that's very interesting that you bring that up. So what you're saying is success can simply be the structure that you have built around how you do what you do.
I think that's part of it.
Yeah, that is, that's interesting. I like that. I like that a lot because, yeah, I think that is the thing, whether you're a mom or you're just a woman in general, or, you're a business person or a teacher or whatever. If you don't have that structure set up around yourself, you're kind of just punching in the dark. And that can never feel successful.
Yeah.
Because you never know what's going to come at you or what you're going at.
Well, and I think, too, you and I, being entrepreneurs, we are much more comfortable with the unknown than most.
Yes.
And unfortunately, I think what you're going through is just part of the regular up and down of, and I don't mean, obviously your situation is unique but as entrepreneurs, we are taking on the risk, and these things, we know life happens, and if we choose not to have the buffer of a boss. And I think that it's one of these things I often talk about pros and cons, and everything has good and everything has bad. I mean, if we make a ton of money, we don't have to, we have to pay the government, but
unfortunately,
we don't just get a salary and our boss company gets what we brought in, right? But at the same time, when it hits the fan,
that's on us.
That's on us. But I often talk about getting a promotion as a grieving experience.
Really?
Because getting a promotion is something that we as a society say is a good thing, right? Oh, I got a promotion. The natural response, congratulations. Oh, I didn't get the promotion. Natural response, oh, that's too bad. Maybe maybe next year you'll be better, luckier, or work harder or whatever, right? So the natural response is that getting a promotion is a good thing. But if you look at all the things that change, a lot of them are very hard. Like, sure, most of the time you get more money. It tends to come along with more time having to be at work.
Right, and more responsibilities.
More responsibility that you're not used to, that you have to learn, that you might get imposter syndrome, all of this. And an important thing from my perspective, with my focus, it changes your social relationships at work.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. Yeah, because now you are the boss. You're not one of us, as they say. You are one of them.
Right. Yeah. And I'm sure there are other things about promotions that are difficult. A promotion can spur you to have more conflicts at home because you're spending more time at work. And there's all kinds of potential negative ripple effects for something that we're taught is just positive.
Right. Yeah, that's an interesting.
But the same thing, what you're going through right now is negative and feels negative, but it's one of those negative sides of something that maybe it's something that you've chosen. So you must get way more good out of it than bad. This is just a bad day.
Yeah, well, this is it's a bad week.
Or week or couple weeks I certainly don't mean to dismiss the pain that you're in.
No.
That's not what I'm trying to do at all. But I'm just trying to put it in context of just like with a promotion, you can go through crap with your social relationships.
Right.
Part of choosing this path of entrepreneurship and doing it on our own, there's a lot of freedom. There's a lot of exhilaration. I find it, I don't like the thought of having a boss ever again.
I can't stand the thought of having a boss again.
I like the flexibility.
Yeah.
I like so many things, but those things are a result of me having to make the decisions.
Yeah.
Me choosing to make the decisions and being willing to take on the risk that things might not go well. And I also have a special needs son, and I often have to change my plans. And that has really and the biggest reason why I'm glad I'm an entrepreneur is that I have that flexibility without having to make excuses to a boss.
Right. Well,
no, I'm not doing my work today because my son is homesick.
Right.
And, but I mean, because I've had to deal with a lot of that, my business growth has been really slow.
Yeah. Oh, I can empathize. It's about worth sometimes when it's just you. You start to ask those questions of, well, is this work worthy? And when you have a boss or when you have coworkers, you can kind of bounce that off of them and get different perspectives. Yeah. And I think that has a lot of value where we need that as people. We need outside perspective because, like we were talking about being in a funk a minute ago, when you can get someone else's perspective on your crappy situation and perhaps they can find one little piece of good in it, it can shift your perspective enough to where you start to feel a little bit more able in the situation. So then you start to make different decisions that can shift you in a direction that allows you to feel more successful. So again, like we said earlier, it comes down to we avoid reaching out and being seen and being vulnerable. Most of us who are doing this entrepreneur thing, but it's the thing we need the most. You need that alternate perspective and that input and all of those things.
Well, I think relationships and I think we were originally going to talk about how from my side, how relationships affect, how you need relationships, healthy relationships to be able to define success for yourself.
Yes. Yeah.
And I mean, I'm going to go back to the saying again, success is doing meaningful work that matters for people who care. You cannot, I would say it is really impossible to know your work or to feel your work has meaning if nobody cares, if you have not found your people yet. And that doesn't mean that you won't still do it. Like a lot of artists still do their art, even though it's not appreciated. A lot of people still, and I don't know if a lot, some, you hear stories, right? Of all these really famous artists who sold like one painting during their whole life.
And
right?
That is because it's important to us.
But most people cannot sustain that.
Yeah.
I don't think most of us can sustain doing work that matters only to us.
No, because it starts to feel defeating. Because it's like, and I have struggled with that, where it's like, this is an idea that is so important to me and how I see the world. But if nobody else gets it, is it really truly all that important?
Yeah.
If I can't get people to understand it, then what's the point?
And it's so hard to know where, because there's stages in that, right? There's so many ways that communication can go wrong. You could just be not talking to the right people.
Right.
You could just be, then you get into like copywriting. You could just not be connecting. You could not be using the right words.
Right. Right.
You could just be like, if you're talking about something with social media or whatever, it's like Facebook's not on your side and not showing it to anybody, right? Which is not connecting with the right people, but it could not be the right time.
Right. But we tend to take that after being beat over the head with that for a while. We tend to take that as a reflection of self. So as a reflection of us and that our ideas suck and blah, 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 blah. And then again, you're sitting there spinning your wheels, and you have to figure out how to, pull yourself out of that and realize, no, that's not what that means, and that, you wouldn't be doing the thing if it didn't have a purpose.
Sometimes people can okay, and this is something that, as you were talking way back at the beginning about feeling like you were, I don't know, jumped on or attacked or some description like that. So I wanted to ask you, it sounds like from the description of just like your muffler falling off your car, nobody did that to you, right? Like nobody vandalized your car, I'm assuming.
No, it was old, and I didn't pay attention to.
So is it the universe ganging up on you?
That's kind of what it felt like.
Okay.
Yeah, that is kind of what it felt like.
Because that's interesting.
But if I had been more proactive, though, I might have been able to prevent it. And so you go into that mindset of, well, gee, this is kind of my fault, and I did this, and so now I'm stuck paying the financial price for this because I didn't fix it, So that's what it was.
Yeah. Well, I think we've talked about this before. I don't know if on this, if in the Play Circle we have, but the Byron Katie, who talks about my business, your business, the universe's business.
Yes.
And I think it's interesting because I was talking about it the other day about the whole Wuhan virus thing, pandemic.
So scary.
It is. And I think partially it's really scary. And I think partially it's the news media trying to capitalize on us being scared. Sign up here for alerts for blah, blah, blah.
Right.
Like, okay.
But the thing is, just don't know.
No. But the thing is, it's like health overall. Right. Some of it's our business and some of it's the universe's business, and we just can't control it, right?
Right.
Like,
yep.
We can buy masks and wear masks. We can make sure we stock up on food. We can do whatever. But if we get sick or not, obviously, if we stay locked up in our house, maybe we won't get sick. But do you want to live that way?
Yeah, and that's not true either, because, I spend a lot of time by myself. I work from my house, and if you know me in other formats, you've heard me talk about that. And I still get sick, because you can't avoid people, and you can't avoid.
Well, you go grocery shopping and have to get your muffler fixed, and
yeah, exactly. And occasionally have to go to the doctors to make sure I don't get sick, and take the dogs to the vet. Typical stuff that we all deal with.
Yeah.
But it's. I mean, so that's out of your control. Like, if you're gonna get sick, you're gonna get sick. Just prepare yourself for. And again, build that structure that I talked about a second ago around yourself, so that when it does happen, it doesn't completely blindside you and wipe you out completely, and I get that. We're not, I don't know if it's naturally as humans, but it's very common that we don't do that for ourselves. Like, we don't build these safe structures around ourselves to foresee things like getting sick, so that we can lessen that blow, or lessen the emotional blow of, the financial unforeseens that knock you over the head at once.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, again, that to me feels like an important pillar of success, is like having those tools available so that that they exist, that can either help you prevent catastrophe or make it easier to rebound from it.
Yeah, well, I think that's part of being responsible. But
great. So now I'm not successful, and I'm not responsible.
No. You're saying you're going to do it. Like, you're saying you.
Right. Yeah.
So I was not meant as an insult. I just wanted to agree with what you said.
Right.
And then have an alternate perspective that I don't think is true instead, but is also true.
Right.
Which has come to me as experience with my special needs son, which is the moment I think I can, well, I shouldn't say that.
I know where you're going.
We have issues.
Yeah.
Okay. We have particular challenges, and one of them, he's been great lately, but one of them can just be getting out of the house in the morning to go to school because he doesn't want to go to school most days.
Yeah.
But sometimes it's getting out of the house to do things supposedly he wants to do, or sometimes it's just a blow up over something else. And one of the things I've noticed, and I don't know the exact ratios or anything, I'm just going to pull it out of my ear, but I feel like about 50% of the time that something goes wrong, it was reasonably foreseeable, and we're trying to maneuver and do whatever, right?
Right.
I feel about 50% of the time when we run into real problems, it was totally unexpected.
Yeah.
It was just maybe the result of him having a bad sleep, which all these things can be predictable, right? Like if he doesn't have a good sleep, yeah, we're probably going to have a hard day.
Right.
But sometimes it just seems like you're having a very upset moment, and I have no idea why.
I don't have any idea what to do. Right.
Well, we do have strategies now to know what to do, because sometimes the last time he came home from school and just got really upset over something that seemed trivial, and so his dad gave him a granola bar, and then he started feeling better, and then I looked and he hadn't eaten his lunch all day.
He was hangry.
He was absolutely hangry.
Yeah.
But I totally didn't expect. So we ordered, I think maybe I've told you this already. So David ordered, one of his prizes for a behavior that we want him to do is every 5 days he's done it, he gets hot cocoa. Like the whole family has hot cocoa.
Nice.
So David ordered him a special purple mug because that's his favorite color or whatever. And
Cool.
David got 2 blue ones because that's his color.
Uh-huh.
One of his came in a really nice box because apparently there's a blue that's the color of the year, and Tommy's didn't. And Tommy was so upset that he didn't get a special box and purple isn't the color of the year.
He was insulted.
He was so upset, but he was like crying and screaming, and he kicked the not with the mug in it. He didn't break anything, but he kicked the box across the room. And I'm like, this is not my kid.
Yeah.
Like, he's not violent. He is not like that.
And
he was so angry.
Yeah, it wasn't rooted in violence. It was rooted in, that's not fair. My color is just as cool, and I want a cool box. So
it was total. It was 99% physical. It was 99% because his body was saying, "I'm dying.
Right.
I'm starving. Life is not a good thing." And then you interpret, and then
right. Yeah.
I get the hangries. He takes after me.
Yeah.
But you just...
Hangries can be ugly.
I have been shocked because when the morning's not going well, I deal with it really well and patiently and everything if I've had something to eat.
Yes.
And if I haven't, I'm like, I'm supposed to do this and this and this, and just do what you're supposed to do, and I'm going to cry. And it's brutal. But when I realize that, I'm like, oh my gosh, handful of almonds and get on with it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm not trying to dismiss that's one of the things. Like, I don't want to just dismiss the feeling.
No, but
it's physically based, and the solution, and it's not. So that's what information my feelings are giving me. My feelings are giving me the information my body needs care.
And that's what I was just going to say. It's about taking care of yourself in a way that positively supports and regulates your emotions.
Yeah.
You know, we forget that there is a huge link there between what we think, what we feel, and what we do.
Our bodies are where our emotions come from. They're also where our thoughts come from. And people who...
Well, it's
people can argue the mind and brain are different and all that kind of thing.
Yeah, it's a two-way street. Your brain affects your body, and your body affects your brain.
Yeah.
Take care of them both, and you'll be okay.
Well,
you know,
you'll be on a good path anyway.
Yeah, right. But we don't, because we take, and this gets, I kind of feel like, into your emotional education. We take our brains for granted. We take our bodies for granted.
Yeah.
Until something goes wrong. It's, if you were more mindful about taking care of your mind and your brain, you'd be more successful, because you'd be giving your mind and your body the things it needs to allow you to make decisions that ultimately will move you in a successful direction.
Yeah.
And I think that's what the whole
you can be
thing comes down to.
successful and unhealthy. I think if you don't have a foundation of health, you're kind of screwed.
You're pretty unsuccessful, I think.
So, and that doesn't mean
that,
like there are a lot of us with chronic illnesses and stuff like that.
That's
So
what
it doesn't.
I say that as someone who has faced a lot of health challenges, and through those health challenges, I realized that there are ways to take better care of myself. And once I started doing those things, I've learned how much better I feel, how much better I engage, how much better I produce, when I think and feel good, because I've given my mind and my body the things that I need. Now, I say that as someone who still doesn't drink enough water, as I'm constantly told as I should. But small steps, little things. I eat food now. So that's a win. That's something that I know will support me in being more successful than I have been in the past.
Because energy matters and all sorts of things. Like just feeling like you have physical energy.
Right. Well, and I think this comes down to something else that you and I have talked about in the past, is tiny habits. And having tiny habits in place, that will allow you to be successful at fill in the blank. And everyone's little habits will be different based on what area of life it is you're trying to be successful. If you're trying to be successful in fitness, your habits are going to need to be different than someone who is trying to be successful in a role of motherhood, or someone who's trying to be successful as a teacher. We're all going to take different small steps. But again, if you know what those small steps need to be that are repeatable, that can help you be successful, then achieving your idea of success becomes that much easier.
So, we have like 5 minutes left.
Oh, holy cow. Yes, we do.
So where can we end this on a note? You mentioned tiny habits, and we have gotten out of the habit of ending with tiny habits.
Tiny habits, yeah.
And sometimes it just, So sometimes we suggest one big thing instead, and sometimes we just have ended the conversation. But what about, so I would suggest for people who, I would say for one thing, remember that defining success for yourself is a journey. And it's like I think you could, even if you could perfectly define success and what it is for you right now, that's going to change because you change and your life changes.
Right.
So I think it's important to realize this is an ongoing process, and it is a process.
Absolutely.
And as you go through that process, what I would say my first thing, or the biggest thing, would be what I've already said about making sure that you define success based on things that are up to you.
Things that are within your control.
And I can't get away from also saying, remember that other people, the right people, are essential for helping you actually in your journey. They are going to give you your soul family and your community that is a healthy community that supports you and that you can help other people too, are going to support you and be the foundation for understanding what success is, for creating, for discovering what it is, deciding what it is, and then creating that.
Yeah. Yep.
My 2 cents. So what those are the 2 things I think are really important.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think for me, the two things would be, which we all overlook, I know I certainly do, is finding small wins every day.
And celebrating them?
Yes,
True.
because it doesn't matter what it is. That's one of the things that can prevent you from going into that downward spiral too, is finding one small thing that makes you feel successful that did go well, in spite of this maybe bigger thing over here that blew up to oblivion.
Yeah.
Sometimes that one little thing will be the one thing that saves your sanity. And again, and this is something, I don't know, it's really tugging at me. Something that I probably need to think a lot more about, and it is that idea of building a structure. Building a structure for success, of what are the things that I can do. And you're obviously going to think about that in a time when you're calm, when you're having a good day, when you're in high spirits, and you can think objectively about what your repeated reactions are when the you know what hits the fan, and what things are that you realize you need in those moments to help you not go to that crappy place, and make sure that you keep those things either top of mind or readily accessible, so that you can lean on those things to help make the crappy situations feel a little, or maybe if you're lucky, a lot less crappy, I think.
And relationships are a big one of those things. And it takes time. It takes time to build them. It takes conscious deliberation sometimes of saying, these are the people in that circle that I can rely on, that I can trust. And then there are people outside that I'm not going to treat the same, that I'm not going to.
And those people on the outside are going to be the people. My experience has been that the people on the outside of that are the people who you think should be on the inside.
Well, for various reasons, whether they're family or long-term friends or whatever. But I mean, I think there's multiple layers. Like, I think there's your core people who are already on the inside. But to me, even the outside can also be people who you just haven't put in the time with.
True.
They can be people who could move to the inside, but you haven't put the time in the relationship.
Right.
Or sometimes, like, I have at least one person kind of in that, which is just, she's not 100% emotionally safe all the time.
Right. Yes. Yep.
I care about her. I try to help her. I let her in a bit. But if I really was, because she's judgmental sometimes.
Yes.
And I got to know that. And when I'm feeling particularly vulnerable, I don't need that. Like, that's something that's going to hurt me.
Right. And you also have to be careful of, the situation I find myself around a lot is when I get into those situations, like you said, I need to internalize and I need to process first. And I have someone who is the eternal fixer, who always tries to swoop in and be like, I'll do the research, I can fix this, and just goes at it like a jackhammer. And it becomes overwhelming.
Okay.
And so knowing, again, I think it comes back to building that structure for, you can either emotionally react to that situation, or if you have that buffer structure around you, you can acknowledge the attempt to fix it, but also acknowledge that, no, in this moment, I need to do this first.
Well, in that moment, you need to do whatever you need to do, and maybe you need to contact someone else who can just listen and help you feel heard. And then you can go to the jackhammer when you're ready to solve the problem.
Exactly. And that's key. See, and for most of us, we just are reactionary to whatever comes at us as we're experiencing those situations. But we do have a choice. We don't have to be reactionary. And that is one of the greatest lessons that I have actually learned, is you don't have to be reactionary. when you have that space that you can go to and be okay. And as I said earlier, diarrhea of the mouth, just to get it out and then get that positive feedback. You don't have to be reactionary to those other situations.
Mm-hmm. But I think that it's similar and worth pointing out maybe that there's similar processes involved in dealing with, healing from bad things that happen, but
right.
also defining success for yourself is also part of that, a similar process, right?
Yes.
Because a lot of our challenges in defining success for ourselves is getting over the messages we've got about what success should be.
Yes, absolutely.
And it's possible that those messages are telling us something that is true for us, but sometimes just having something, I hate being told what to do. So just being hit over the head that I should be doing something, I automatically am like, go away.
Yes.
But so it takes some processing of saying, like, really, would this be like you're saying, brainstorming or getting valuable feedback.
Yes.
And a lot of the time too, we've talked about the paradox of talent and skill and our gifts. We can't see them very well.
Right. You don't see.
So getting feedback about, like we were talking about you doing in-person events and instead of focusing on online stuff so much. And it's like, well, your gift is interacting with the child and figuring out that an individual child needs through interacting with them. And it's like, you're gifted at that and you love doing that. So shouldn't that be part of what you do, part of your success picture?
Right.
And so sometimes we need that kind of insight.
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure. Because we take for granted what comes naturally to us.
Yeah.
I am very guilty of that. Like, I've been in education for so many years. It's just how I think. I think about the world through an educational lens. Just do.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. So I'm presenting at a networking event tomorrow.
Okay.
Assuming Tommy goes to school. And we're a networking group that has regular members, and I've been part of it for a couple of years now. Okay. So we know each other reasonably well. I'm taking that exercise that you and I did a week and a half or so ago and doing it there. So everybody is going to get a chance. So it's a little bit about my business because I get to talk about my book and the paradox of talent and that, right? But I also think it's going to be valuable for everyone there because they can get feedback about what other people see as their talents.
I think that's genius. That's
so
amazing.
And just like I had you do, people are supposed to fill it out for themselves as well and compare because you automatically went to your major benefits for your education and your experience. And I think a lot of us do that because those things are hard won.
Yes, right? They are. Absolutely.
They're hard won and they are valuable. They're hard won and they're valuable, but they might not be our talent.
Right. Absolutely. But when it's you don't see it that way.
Right. So when we're done here in a minute, I'm going to go prep my materials because I've got to get like sheets ready for people to write on. I'm going to have to bring scissors. Anyway, I've got to packages but I'm hoping that people will find it. I'm hoping that people will find it valuable because I was part of a mastermind group about a year and a half ago and we met a few times. And then one of our major discussions was, what do you identify people with? Like, what's the main thing you think of? And somebody said to me that I respect people.
Mm-hmm.
And she's a member of Gulf Moms Supporting Moms. Okay. And she's like, it comes across so clear there. But it's just part of what she sees in me, right?
Yeah. See, and I think of you as the connector.
Well, yeah. But both things are true and both things are valuable, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's valuable to know that, but It was interesting because when she said she sees that I just treat people with respect and I respect people, and my immediate reaction was, doesn't everybody?
No.
And then my second reaction after that was, well, no, people don't, because that's why I do a lot. Why I'm called to do a lot of what I do.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
absolutely.
it's funny how my immediate thing was that, but that's true of everybody.
Yeah. But because that's how you see the world, and
yes,
sadly, it's not the reaction for everybody.
Nope. I had to boot 2 people from the group last night.
Oh my.
I've only done that. Well, besides air duct cleaner spammers, I've only had to remove one other person from the group.
That's a weird spam.
Yeah. Yes, it is, but it's happened multiple times. Anyway, but what happened was, so I went in and I did, so there were people being disrespectful, and I went in and I did what I normally do, which is saying, this is not, this isn't okay for the group. You're not allowed to make fun of other people's parenting decisions. They have their story. This is not a place to make fun of that. And then they made fun of me. I'm like, you're gone. I made note of their names, but I didn't block them, but I removed them. And I removed their comments.
Yeah.
Like,
that's a great deal of self-control, because that's...
I just described it, a little bit of it, to David, and he's like, were they drunk?
Yeah. No, they were just being punks.
Well, it was 2 women feeding off each other, making fun of women who are more risk averse, like worried about their kids and stuff. I'm like, you have no idea what went into their parenting story. You have no idea where this person is coming from.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they were just like putting GIFs and stuff, making fun of bubble wrapping kids and that. And I'm like, you know what? It's not okay. It's bullying. Like, it's not okay to make fun of people.
No, absolutely not.
Yeah. And then, I don't know what could have been in their head. Maybe they didn't realize I was the admin of the group. I don't know. But to make fun of the admin of the group who's trying to let you know that what you're doing is unacceptable was kind of not wise if they wanted to stay, because they haven't stayed.
Yeah, no.
But I don't normally have to do that, and I do respect people, and I did try to say in a very respectful way that what they were doing is not allowed in this group.
It's not how we roll. Sorry.
No, but then when they made fun of me, I'm like, turf. Anyway.
Yeah, wow.
But part of success, I have to own it, and I have to own making those decisions, right?
Well, right, because once you do it, it's done.
Well, I mean, I was looking at it, and I had to decide, what am I going to say? I think this is inappropriate. What am I going to say? Am I going to say something? Am I going to just delete it? What am I going to do?
Right.
So you have to decide what your leadership style is, like we've talked about in the community builder class. Like, how are you going to lead? And what are you going to have your community stand for that you are willing to take action to uphold?
Absolutely.
And that's hard. It can be hard.
Well, I can definitely see where it would be. It could be hard, for sure.
It's hard to find the right things to say for me, because I have very high standards of respect and kindness, and I'm not allowed to violate them.
See, when I see people do things or say things that I find horrible, I lose my sense of like self-restraint. And I'm just going to tell you, you need to stop or go away. And that's putting it in a very nice way. But,
yes.
Fair enough. I don't have the ability to like sugarcoat that kind of stuff. No, if you're being a jerk, you're being a jerk. And you need to stop.
Yeah. I don't know what was going on, but these 2 women were feeding off each other. And I'm like, that's just... It reminded me of high school. Of the like, it was just so averse. It was
Wow.
Anyway, bit of a rant, but it's been on my mind apparently.
Yeah. Well, but those things do sit on our mind, and they chew at us, and like we talked about a second ago, you just sometimes have to get them out so that you can move on. I find myself being that way. It's, I go to that emotional place, and I have the emotions, and I feel the emotions, and then I tend to feel better.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like the body's reaction to like wanting to get rid of something that it knows is toxic.
Oh.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
graphic image in my mind, but yeah.
But it's like I don't feel like I have the ability to choose to like get that off my chest. Like, it's just something that
needs to come.
It needs to come. It needs to be done.
Yeah.
And often it gets done in the form of me having an emotional breakdown.
Well, I hope the next week goes better than the last week. How is that?
It already is.
Okay, good.
So it already is setting up to do so. So, I mean, you skyrocket to the bottom, and you can only bounce back up, right?
Yeah. Don't tempt the universe.
Yeah.
I don't know about tempting the universe like that. But anyway, so we will catch up again very soon. I actually have to go and prep for that networking event thing because.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm excited.
That's going to be good. Yeah, for sure.
So cool. All right. Thank you.